I think you clicked go live.
Sorry?
Okay, we can. We're going live now. Inshallah, we can begin. We are live. You can X out of the YouTube tab, and then we can begin. You don't have to copy it. You could just exit out. We're not sending an email. And then also the YouTube page, you can X that too. Just the YouTube tab. No, not that one. The YouTube tab.
YouTube.
On the yeah, on a little bit more to the left. It's right there. Yep. Okay, we are live. Inshallah, we can be.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. رب لا تذرني فردا وأنت خير الوارثين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا هب لنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. We are studying from the Supreme Sign, the seventh rays, and the second chapter, and the fourth, the second truth, and the third truth today. Inshallah, we are going to read together and work on this section together, inshallah, with your help. Because I didn't have any time to prepare myself for this discussion, for this class, but we will read it together. Or would you like to read, somebody please, the third truth and then go over it so we can discuss together? There are anyone in the room can do it. Come on, go ahead. Otherwise I will point out the name. So you will read it and from the third truth. Come on, volunteering somebody quickly. I will start.
Assalamu alaikum, I can read it.
Alaikum salam, third truth. So please, Suhail, go ahead.
Third truth. The creation of beings, particularly plants and animals, with absolute speed and absolute orderliness, with absolute ease and extreme skill, talent, ability, and order, with great value and distinction, despite extreme abundance and intermingling. Yes, to produce with extreme swiftness and in extreme abundance, most skillfully and artistically, with great ease and facility, combined with the utmost care and orderliness, with great value and distinction, despite abundance and intermingling, without any form of confusion or deficiency. This can be achieved only by a unique being whose power is such that nothing appears difficult to it. For that power, it is as easy to create stars as atoms. It is as easy to create stars as atoms, the greatest as the smallest, a whole species as a single member of a species, a whole species as a single member of a species, a sublime and comprehensive universal as a restricted and petty particular. It is easy for him to revivify and quicken the whole earth as to do the same with a tree, or to erect a tree as tall as a mountain, as it is to produce a seed no bigger than a fingernail. All of these deeds he performed in front of our eyes. So the exposition, the solution, the uncovering and proof of the mystery of this degree of the assertion of the divine unity, this third truth, this word of unity, the mystery that the greatest universal is like the smallest particular, without the slightest difference between them, this beneficial wisdom, the supreme talisman, this riddle beyond the reach of the intellect, this most significant foundation of Islam, this most profound source of faith, this greatest basis of the divine unity, the setting forth of all of this opens the talisman of the Quran and makes it possible to know the most secret and unknowable riddle of the creation of all beings. A riddle that reduces philosophy to impotence. So read that paragraph again. So the exposition, the solution, the uncovering and proof of the mystery of this degree of the assertion of the divine unity, this third truth, this word of unity, the mystery that the greatest universal is like the smallest particular, without the slightest difference between them, this beneficial wisdom, the supreme talisman, this riddle beyond the reach of the intellect, this most significant foundation of Islam, this most profound source of faith, this greatest basis of the divine unity, the setting forth of all this opens the talisman of the Quran and makes it possible to know the most secret and unknowable riddle of the creation of all beings, a riddle that reduces philosophy to impotence. Thanks and praise 100,000 times the letters of the Risale-i Nur to be to the compassionate Creator that the Risale-i Nur has solved, uncovered and established this wondrous talisman, this wondrous riddle. It has proven with decisive arguments to the same degree of certainty that twice 2 is 4, particularly in the discussion of He is powerful over all things, toward the end of the 20th letter. In the section concerning God's being an all-powerful agent, in the 29th word, one devoted to the resurrection, and in the section proving the divine power and the degrees of God is most great, in the 29th flash, written in Arabic. For that reason, we assign to those parts of the Risale-i Nur the exposition of this matter, wishing, however, to set out briefly the foundations and proofs that solve this mystery and to allude to 13 mysteries that resemble 13 steps, or a list of contents. I have indeed written the first and second mysteries, but unfortunately 2 powerful obstacles, material and immaterial, have caused me to abandon the remainder. So that is the third truth. And here he's talking about, I'm going to share my comments briefly, but about divine unity, and specifically as one sort of witnesses to it and sees and observes it from the creation of beings. Specifically, the variety, or sort of the great expanse of creation, plants, animals, and they come into existence just at an instant, absolute speed. That's really what absolute speed is. There really is no time in the sense in which it comes into existence. It just happens to be, and like that it is. There is no delay. An absolute orderliness in the same sense that the order is perfect from moment to moment to moment. There is no sort of break in the order. so to speak. It is absolutely perfect and comes in an absolute speed or in an instant. And you know, the observation of this world demonstrates that there's no difficulty in doing so. How it's coming into existence is shows that there's no difficulty in whoever or whatever is doing it to bring it into existence. Um, you know, despite the vast array or the number of creatures in this world, really to the number of particles in existence. And yet, everything, as he points out, even though things are swift and in abundance, they each have a sort of art to them, and like a skillful art, and they're each taken care of in their own respective manner. So me is me, the plant is the plant, the mountain as the mountain, the star is the star, um, and regardless of how many things are occurring at once or existing at once, no thing detracts from anything else or makes it less skillful, less artful, or less perfect, which shows that the artist who's bringing these things into existence doesn't have any, it must be absolute because there's no sort of confusion in my existence and a tree's existence. And as he points out, this can be only achieved by a unique being whose power is such that nothing appears difficult to it. So it must, that one must have absolute power. Because no matter how great or small something is, as he says, star or atom, they are equally the same before that power. Or for example, a single human, like in a species, a single human being is as easy to bring into existence and to fashion and to put into a particular order as it is for the entirety of humanity. So, you know, power, this absolute power manifests on the particular and the universal. And he gives up more and more examples to revivify the dead earth is as quick as to give life to a tree as tall as a mountain, as it is to produce a seed no bigger than a fingernail. These are all happening all at once, at the same moment, the same time. And so that's that is the riddle of the universe, so to speak. And it's the Quran sort of solves that riddle, you know, brings forth that riddle and then solves it for man, because that is what creation is demonstrating for us, the riddle that it wants us to solve. How is this happening with such perfect order, in such a at such an instant, and without any confusion, and each thing has a specific form, and there's no deficiency between one thing or another. In other words, the artist doesn't tire between giving me existence versus giving something else existence, whether another human being or another species or creature in this world. That is the great mystery of the world. And as he says, is the most significant foundation of Islam. So absoluteness is the crux of belief, that all things are owed to a unique and singular one who has power over all things, and definitely is greater than anything one can imagine. So these were some of my thoughts from this section. Does anybody have their own thoughts? Nothing. Otherwise, we can continue if nobody has any.
I didn't know how to raise my hand. Excuse me, I'm confused.
Oh, go ahead.
You covered it. It's something looks strange. Why I cannot raise my hand? Okay, it is not.
I think because you're the host. That's why.
I am the host, maybe, or it must give me an option to raise my hand, but I don't see any option here. Anyways, now I think you covered it. And the subject, we are very familiar with the subject of absoluteness, understanding the divine unity. Where was it here? All this divine unity as absoluteness of the source of existence. That is the crux of the subject. You covered it. But what is important here, the text introduces this concept or this conclusion after witnessing the universe, what is going on in this universe that we are observing. For example, everything is coming into existence swiftly. It means no time break at all, and also extreme abundance, most skillfully and artistically, and great ease, facility, and at the same time, utmost care and orderliness, a great value as distinction, no confusion, the abundance, intermingling, but without any form of confusion and deficiency. This can only be done by a unique being whose power is such that nothing appears difficult to it. From there, we conclude that it must have absolute qualities in not only he is an absolute being that I cannot really imagine, I cannot really think of its essence, but at the same time, I can comfortably conclude that, so this type of existence definitely forces me, if you like, this word, forces my mind to accept that the one who creates the universe must be a divine being, and his being must be absolute, infinite. I cannot really physically comprehend it, but I can intellectually comprehend and be convinced about it. I am absolutely sure, I am certain that the source of the creation of this universe is nothing but a divine absolute being. Actually, divine means absolute. That is what I also concluded as after reading and listening to you. Thank you. That's perfect. So we can continue. If other brothers and sisters want to comment, further comments, welcome. So Suhail will take up the microphone.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's, as you point out, it's very important because his method is that he makes an observation before coming to a conclusion, which is what the Quran, in a sense, does too, is that it makes you first go to the things out there that in your world in order to come to a conclusion. You know, as it points out, as it always asks you to look here and there, Or have you not seen this or experienced this, or numerous examples in the Quran? Anybody else have any thoughts before we go on to the first mystery? Okay, all right, I'll keep reading. First mystery. If something be essential, its opposite cannot have access to the essence defined by that thing. If something be essential, its opposite cannot have access to the essence defined by that thing. For that would be equivalent to the union of opposites, which is an absurdity. Now, with regard to this principle, since God's power is related to his essence and is an essential concomitant of his most sacred essence, impotence, the opposite of power, cannot in any way gain access to that all-powerful essence. Now, with regard to this principle, since God's power is related to his essence and is an essential concomitant of his most sacred essence, impotence, the opposite of power, cannot in any way gain access to that all-powerful essence. Moreover, the existence of degrees within a thing comes about through the intervention in it of its opposite. For example, strong and weak degrees of light result from the intervention of darkness. High and low degrees of heat proceed from the admixture of coldness. And greater and lesser amounts of strength are determined by the intervention opposition of resistance. It is therefore impossible that degrees should exist in that power of the divine essence. He creates all things as if they were but a single thing. And since degrees do not exist in the power of the divine essence, and it does not admit of weakness or deficiency, no obstacle can in any way obstruct it, nor could the creation of anything cause it difficulty. Since, then, nothing is difficult for God's power, he creates the supreme resurrection with the same ease as spring. He creates the supreme resurrection with the same ease as spring, spring with the same facility as a tree, and a tree with as little trouble as a flower. Further, he creates a flower as artistically as a tree as miraculously as a spring, and a spring as comprehensively and wondrously as a resurrection. All of this he accomplishes in front of our eyes. It has been proved in the Risale Nur with decisive and strong proofs that if there were no divine unity, the making of a flower would be as difficult as a tree, or even more difficult. The making of a tree would be as hard as spring, or even more difficult. The creation would even lose its value and artistic quality. An animate being that now takes a minute to produce would be produced with difficulty in 1 year, or maybe never at all. It is then on account of this mystery that these fruits, flowers, trees, and animals that are extremely valuable, despite their ubiquitousness and abundance, and extremely artistic, despite the swiftness and ease of their fashioning, emerge in regular fashion onto the plane of being and assume their functions. Proclaiming God's glory, they accomplish their duties and depart, leaving behind their seed in their stead. So, from this first mystery, he's kind of going a little bit deeper into the subject here. In that the most important principle is that, in my observation of the world, I see degrees of things, as he points out, different degrees of light, different degrees of heat, different degrees of strength, primarily because, you know, as he points out, in the first line, if something is essential, its opposite cannot have access to the essence defined by that thing. To try to put it simply, I guess, you know, if something truly has possession of a thing or truly owns something, they cannot be made deficient of it. So, for example, if a king truly has power, no subject could make his power deficient because that power is of his essence. It belongs to him. It's related to his essence, as he says, and it's an essential component of his essence. You know, like you can't speak about the king except you speak about his power. The king has an essential nature. He's a king, but with that kingship is also his power, and you can't speak of the two independently of one another in reality. And nothing can intervene in his power in this analogy, I guess, to make his power any weaker. In other words, he has absolute power. Otherwise, if something were to interfere with his power, if some subject were to interfere with his power, then he would not be able to do things as easily. For example, let's say in the existence of this world, some things would appear more difficult to bring about. For example, let's say a mountain or a star or a planet in comparison to a seed. But they are all equally coming into existence at the same time. In other words, he must have absolute power. Whereas things of this nature of the world, of the nature of this world, if I do something, for example, if I try to, let's say, drink a glass of water, it appears I have some power. But at the same time, I cannot move a mountain. So my power is not absolute. Or in other words, my power isn't essential to my being. It doesn't necessarily belong to me, because if it did, I can do as I will. And I think that's the point he's making here, is that things don't have essential qualities essential to themselves. Because if they did, then they could give themselves existence. Whereas he not only must he have power, but his power must be absolute, and therefore of his essence, of his nature, because of the fact that things are come into existence so swiftly, and there's no deficiency in that power. And as he points out, interestingly, as he kind of Nursi always ties two things. One, all things look to their source of existence, their absolute source, and in another way, they look to the resurrection. That's really what the two faces of this world look to: the maker and the resurrection. And in the same way, and in that way, as he points out, the existence of, let's say, the flower looks to the art of the flower, looks to the tree, which looks to the spring, which looks to the resurrection, and vice versa. The resurrection looks to the spring, which looks to the tree, which looks to the flower. They are all equal in terms of the ease in which they occur before his power. They are all miraculously given existence equally, and they all happen as before us. So the resurrection that we experience every spring, and also the resurrection we experience every moment, from moment to moment, and also the resurrection also. No, they all point to the same power and the same ease in which he accomplishes this feat. So one within the other, from the particular to the universal, all look to that same his same power. And in contrast, if you were to take the opposite scenario, as he points out, if there was no divine unity, or in other words, this source wasn't absolute, then bringing a flower into existence or creating a flower would be as difficult as a tree, or even more difficult. In other words, if he can't bring one thing into existence, or it would be difficult for one thing, then everything would be difficult, or in reality impossible, because things are all essentially the same. The making of a tree would be as hard as a spring, or even more difficult. And the creation will even lose its art value and artistic quality, because its value and artistic quality proceeds only from the fact that an absolute source of existence makes it. Otherwise, something that's on a temporal basis, transient, has no value, essentially. So that's, and then actually the last thing I'll say is, proclaiming God's glory, they accomplish their duties and depart, leaving behind their seed in their stead. In other words, as he points out, the purpose of existence or creation is that they look to him and they look to the resurrection. In other words, that's their glorification. They make him known, and then not only his essence, his most sacred essence, but the qualities that define that essence, for example, knowledge and power and will, and so on and so forth. They accomplish it, depart at the next moment, and leave their seed in their stead. That seed being, I think what he's trying to say is, that seed of belief that's for man to take and to sort of cultivate. So that's what I took away from the first mystery. Does anybody have any thoughts? No? I'll leave them around. I know you can't raise your hand, but if you can open up your mic if you want to. Sorry, I don't think I can hear you. I don't know if anybody else can. Your mic is muffled. Anybody else having the same issue? Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
How about now?
That's better.
That is better now?
Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead now. No, same thing again. Your mic is blocked again.
From there.
Okay, now it's better.
Now it's better. Okay, thank you. So what we understand from here, that as you said, I'm just repeating, maybe going over once more, to review it together. So we as an introduction to the third truth, we said the creator, after observing the universe, we conclude that whoever has given existence to the universe must be absolute, infinite. Now it is its self-existence is coming into the subject, in the first mystery, means absoluteness necessitates self-existence. It means it is existence in its essence, by itself, in itself, by itself, of itself, whatever the propositions you use. We cannot really, for example, compare this absolute being to any part of this universe, anything of this universe. Everything is dependent in this universe. Everything needs to be given existence. That is how we conclude that whoever gave existence should not need to be given existence. This is a logical conclusion. If something is in need of being given existence, then it cannot be absolute. It is dependent. If something is the source of existence of something else, it must be absolute. That is why we raise this question. If nature is its own creator, if it exists eternally, it must be absolute. And if something is absolute, as the first mystery points out, there should be no contradictory qualities in it. Everything must be only self-existing, pure existence. Everything by definition. Pure existence, but in the universe, it changes. It cannot change itself. It has no quality to do anything. This universe has full of contradictions. They are born, they die. They change, their shapes are continuous to change. They have a beginning, they have an end for their every second existence. So absoluteness is not to be observed in this universe, is not to be understood with an observation, as a result of observation. So absoluteness is only a logical conclusion which does not contradict human qualities, because human qualities also want an absolute point of support for their existence. For example, my existence is fragile. It changes, and I'm going to die. I know that I am given something, and they are being taken away from my existence. I know that, but my human feelings remind me that I need of a creator, a being who is responsible for my existence, who is not needy. That is how I can feel secure. I cannot feel secure in my existence in and of myself. But I need a point of security for my existence. And human consciousness can comfortably comprehend this. I need an infinite, absolute being who is responsible for my existence, and this being should not have any contradictory qualities, such as big, small, near, far, heavy, light, or can do this but cannot do this, able to do something but not able to do another thing. That is a logical conclusion of the creator must be absolute. So the universe witnesses this. I look at the universe, I see there are many different kinds of creation, but the way that they come into existence, all of them is the same. Very easy, swiftly, no confusion, perfect creation. Everything is perfectly decorated. Everything is separated from each other. No confusion. Although everything is intermingled with each other, but there is no confusion, perfect distinction between every individual being. That demonstrates that the source of existence is such a being, it must have such an essence that this essence cannot interfere into this essence any opposites. I think this is easy to understand by any human being if they don't condition themselves. So we only then I, as a human being, feel secure in my existence. I say, look, I am changing. I am getting old. I am going to die. That is for sure. But my creator, my source of existence has no opposite qualities, only perfections. Infinite perfections. I cannot imagine, but I can understand. Must be. That is why belief is in ghaib. That is a very interesting mystery. We learn from the Quran that those people who have certainty, yaqeen, they believe in God. They believe in God, correct, but in ghaib. God is in ghaib for me. What does it mean? It is beyond, whose existence is beyond my comprehension. But this is very important. I am aware that my creator is beyond my comprehension. That is like, looks like a tricky language. I comprehend that my creator is incomprehensible. That is interesting. I comprehend it. My creator, the creator of this universe, must be incomprehensible. But I comprehend this. It is not beyond my capacity, but it is beyond my capacity to comprehend his essence. But his being incomprehensible is within my capacity. That is an amazing creation. I'm always really excited about this point. Personally, I don't know whether I could express, I could really express my feelings to you, but it is very exciting to understand that if someone says, oh, you believe in God, where is it? Come on, show me. Or these are very simple language. They think that God means something like a super Noah star or something. It's ridiculous. So we have to be comfortable in our conclusions, inshallah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so yeah, ghaib being, it's unseen because my conclusion is unseen by definition. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to conclude if something was obvious to me. in this world, physically speaking, or if the source or agent of existence were of the nature of this world, then there would be no conclusion to be made, and therefore things wouldn't be ripe or unseen, so to speak. So, and as you said, it's a very important aspect to this subject. Does anybody else have any comments about this? Go ahead, H. Beza.
Assalamu alaikum. So this is more of a sub point, and not really, it's related, but not directly perhaps related to the last point that was made. But as we were reading this, an argument formed in my mind for someone who might say, okay, well, okay, things come into existence continuously. I can't really refute that. And they seem to be coming into existence with the same degree of ease, despite what I would consider from my perspective something that's smaller or bigger or more difficult, or something that's easier. But as the text was also highlighting there, the degrees, I also see that that things in existence also decay in degrees. I find that they are dying, that nothing stays the same, that things disappear, or they have some sort of end, or they have an expiration date, much like milk. But I guess to this thought in my mind, my counter question would be, even within the order of the universe, can I truly say that things have an end? Yeah, I am constantly in a state of change, of motion. But can I really say that things are no more, or that they no longer exist? Whether in my own aging, the wilting away of a flower, the departure of the spring or summer, the setting of the day, whatever the case is, even in the death of a human being, or let's say the destruction or the burning of a paper, for example, whatever, can I really say that what I consider that to be the end of something is truly the end of it, with a period, like a capital the end, with a period at the end? Because even within the order of the universe, nothing really goes out of existence. If you burn a piece of paper, its existence takes on another form. If you bury someone underneath the ground, again, just like from a material perspective, the material doesn't disappear. It takes on a different form. So I can then say that there is no such thing as absolute disappearance. There's just, as we've established, there's constant motion, there's constant change, there's constant renewal, replacement, but there's no absolute disappearance. Things just take on different forms, but nothing essentially goes into non-existence. Even within my experience in this universe, even within my experience of death, even if it's not my death immediately, the death of the other things that I experience. And so this demonstrates the continuity of, also, just as material beings continuously exist, it also demonstrates the continuity of my non-material being, my spirit, transcending beyond, or going beyond the physical limitations as I experience the order of the universe, by virtue of the quality of absoluteness that is demonstrated to me within the order of the universe, in the universe itself. That is all.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I would just, because when you were mentioning about different form, I would just add or amend that by saying, because I mean, mm, the argument for the eternity of the universe or the eternal nature of the universe and therefore its absoluteness is that, well, the universe is eternal, a philosopher may say, or it's, and therefore, in essence, they're saying it's absolute or the source of its own being, essentially, because things take on different form. And so, I'm maybe here one day, but dust another. But, you know, in reality, actually, it's things are always new, fundamentally, completely. In other words, the prior moment can't be said to be the same existence at the next moment. Um, uh, Otherwise, if things were essentially the same, were fundamentally taking on different forms, but were the same essential thing, there wouldn't be change to begin with at all. What Nursi points out, the fact that there is change or that there is intervening degrees of things points to the fact that this world has no essential nature to itself. It has no, it's not independently existent. It's dependent or contingent, and contingent upon one who must be absolute. But then, as you said, yes, if that's the case, I guess from my perspective, things appear to be quote unquote going into non-existence, even though non-existence really isn't real. There's no such thing as non-existence. But from my perspective, I guess I'm just experiencing one moment after another, after another, after another. So I'm like turning the page. But in reality, or truly, from the perspective of absolute, there is no such thing as non-existence. And again, that shows the lack of, or I guess maybe a better phrase is, there is no deficiency, or there must not be any deficiency in his power, and therefore his knowledge, and therefore his will. If things truly are not, if there's truly, there isn't truly non-existence. Whereas from my perspective, things appear to be non-existing anymore. And that's a deficiency from my perspective, because I'm not absolute by definition. There's nothing absolute about my nature. So if I just wanted to add that to what you said. Is that anybody else have any comments?
Just extra comment. I mean, I don't think we have much time left. That's why we cannot go into the second mystery. I think from next week, inshallah, we can start from the second mystery. Just as a comment on the comment of H. Beza, for example, I don't see that my growing from, as I was growing from baby into a child and then a young person, was perfect. As Suhail said, I am happy with it, and I see that the perfection, but as it makes me realize more and more the qualities of the Creator. But in my later period of life, I can see the same perfection again, but this perfection has no sign that the Creator is losing its power. The same absolute power is needed in order to give existence to my old age. Although I feel that my existence is losing the value, but as far as the creation side of it is concerned, it is demonstrating his absoluteness equally. I am creating in this way, I can create at the same time in another way, in order to fulfill a wisdom. a kind of wisdom. This wisdom to teach me that I am dependent. I cannot stop my existence from aging. That is for me deliberately arranged. While I am aging, while some stars are dying, at the same time, new galaxies are created, new babies are given existence, new young people, children growing into youth age. They are also equally given existence alongside with my aging existence. So it is stated, but I'm reiterating what is already said, just to complete the subject so that inshallah in time we can stop. Everything is created in this world and they need absolute qualities, whether they are a baby or a young person or an old person. As far as their coming into existence side of the subject is concerned, it means as far as the aspect of our existence looks to the creator, pointing to the creator, this aspect says, as an old man, my creation demonstrates that my creator has no limit in his creating. Anything he wants, he creates. That is, if we say that there should be only one type of creation, that would not fulfill the purpose of act of creation. Purpose of act of creation, as far as I am concerned, as a conscious being, to teach me that the creator has no limit. He creates everything at the same time, at the perfect way. The creation of a healthy cell is not more or less in need of the power, knowledge, etc., than the creation of an unhealthy, for example, dying cell. Death, creating life is as great as creating death. Giving, or is, if you like, installing the spirit into the body is equal act as taking the spirit out of the body. Giving life is equal to giving death. All the actions coming into existence clearly demonstrates that their creator must be absolute. That is within one action. But if you compare it, there are, let's say, 300,000 people are dying in one day, giving death. At the same time, 300,000 new babies are given existence at the same time. That demonstrates that nothing is lacking as far as the creator's qualities are concerned. So existence aspect of the creation is different from my desire. My desire is I don't want to die. That's correct. I don't want to die. And I have to understand that my existence should continue. That's my desire. And I should look for a source who can continue my existence, so that I will understand it is not me, it is not nature, it is not the galaxies, it is not the atoms, it is not my cells. They are all dying. So I will understand that, oh, none of them can give me eternal existence or permanent existence. Only the one who is giving existence to this universe is teaching me that I have to understand it is only him, he can do it, who can do it. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. That's a good way to end the discussion. Unless anybody has any closing comments, a little bit over time, but okay, I guess we can pick up from the second mystery next week, inshallah. So to close, سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين بحرمة سر سورة الفاتحة.